Hi again, this is Professor Innes, and we are now on Module 12, which is Legislating Lifestyles. We are dealing with more of the concerns about libertarianism, and for this module we're going to be a bit more critical, because libertarianism may sound like a good argument because, as we live in a country whereby individual freedoms are considered as very important, and we have these things called rights which are attached to individuals which are considered to be very important. But is it a good argument? Does it actually work? Do we have a situation whereby allowing people to make their own choices is feasible based upon an understanding of human nature? Namely, can people make these choices? Because it's a big presumption that people can actually make their own choices. So what you're going to read in this section is the argument put forward by Decker. So make sure you understand his argument and tell me about his argument in your writing. And here you've got the controversy, as we just said here, of libertarianism and legislation. With the libertarian, we have legislation passed, and for the libertarian, this legislation is considered as a violation of one's rights. But we're going to investigate and see if this legislation is in fact a good thing, because if we find out that we're not able to make our own choices, as we have seen with the medical fried chicken example, we could see that certain characters, I'll let you pinpoint the characters, seem to be, just making bizarre choices which are not for their good. In fact, they're harming themselves. So we've got that controversy. It's between the libertarian argument to leave people to make their own decision and the legislation argument, which is there to prevent people from harming themselves, a rather paternalistic form of government. Which one is the best one? We'll discuss that. We'll go through it. And again, this is philosophy. We're not necessarily going to provide indubitable proof that one or the other is right. So tell me about these particular arguments. You're going to investigate J.S. Mill, once again a very interesting philosopher, one which is very relevant to SouthPark, because he talked about the liberties of individuals. He talked about people being able to act as long as they did not harm others. So therefore, we could argue that the smoking of marijuana is perfectly fine if you smoke it at home, and that smoking at home does not hurt other people, does not harm other people. So you could imagine that in the sense, therefore, if nobody sees you smoking it, they might know that you are smoking marijuana, but if they don't see you, and namely their children don't see you and get influenced, then you're not harming others. Here, if others see you smoking marijuana, particularly children, and they're over-influenced by it, then that could be seen as a harm. Here I'm saying it could be. That's part of the controversy. It's like here somebody being offended that you're a member of a certain religion. Yes, I find that offensive, but is that a harm? Maybe I should just go and think about something else instead of being preoccupied with you having these religious beliefs which go against mine. But are they harmful? It's just because it's a different belief than I have. So J.S. Mill will be very interesting to refer to here. Right, in passing, there's another television program out there called Breaking Bad, which deals very nicely with this libertarian argument. They are strong on the belief that people can make their own choices, but even though you're not sort of presented with the verbal argument that maybe this is a poor argument, you are presented with these images of these methamphetamine addicts living atrociously poor lives, we might say. And certainly not a life I would like to have, whereby I'm preoccupied with this drug and I live in squalor. So you're presented with that as a possible argument that maybe these people do not have the abilities to make these choices. So that's in Breaking Bad, and it links towards our discussion in SouthPark, where we've got the same situation. Is the libertarian argument a sound argument? Is there a case, therefore, that the addictive aspects of marijuana, for example, is not good for us, and therefore we should not be allowed to make these choices? Keep in mind there is research out there, and the text does point towards this research. There is research that says here that some people can smoke marijuana, and they're perfectly fine with it. Others are spun forward into some form of schizophrenic episode from smoking marijuana. So we've got problems here. Is it a good thing to leave people to make their own choices? In this text, I'm trying to get his name in. All right. In the text, the writer Deckers refers to George Herbert Mead. So an interesting writer, and he talks about the role of the community. In a sense, we think that we're individuals, but really we're influenced by the group. And later on here, you're going to talk about the group as well as having an importance. Maybe your consumption of marijuana should be considered as a bad thing to do, or something which is not advisable, because you belong to this community of individuals, and you've got responsibilities and duties, and maybe spending the weekend smoking marijuana is detrimental to these responsibilities, which are for the good of the community in which you live. So think about George Herbert Mead's argument that this influence of the community may in fact not make you a free person, and therefore your choice on marijuana or not is simply a product of your environment. So think about that, and also later on the importance of the community itself, your responsibilities and duties. Right, so at the end, well, towards the end, you've got this question. We've been hinting at this through the course, that maybe libertarianism is the argument of rich people. We can hear people like, the producers of South Park, they're millionaires. People like Richard Branson, he's a billionaire. Donald Trump, billionaire. They all tend to be libertarians in many respects, and they're arguing people should be left to their own devices. Now, if you've got the money, that's a good thing. You can make your choices, and you probably will be informed about them beforehand as well. So it means that these groups, these privileged groups, have the position whereby making these choices based upon good sound information will lead towards a good choice. But for the rest of us, it doesn't mean to say that's the case. If we're not educated and we don't have financial backing to make a good choice, then we're not in that privileged position. Therefore, libertarianism is not for us, we might say. Right, so keep that in mind. That would be a good consideration once again, because again, we're critical here. Just because libertarianism sounds like a good argument doesn't mean to say it is. Certainly for 9-year-old children, I've got a feeling that they should be guided. Cartman is my favourite example here of somebody who needs guidance, and in one episode the dog trainer puts him in line, trains him how to act, namely to brush his teeth at night, all the good things, which he decides not to do normally. So maybe direction, legislation is a good idea. Maybe we need them. But then again, as we see with the marijuana example, it seems like the legislation of marijuana is chaotic. It's peculiar. We've got people who want to smoke marijuana going to these peculiar lengths, as we see with, I think it's Stan's father. He goes to those peculiar lengths to get the prescription for marijuana. So as it says at the end, why not just make it legal and be done with it? Anyway, as we know, we have not solved the problem, we've just understood the problem, and this is a big problem. So analyze, please, and think about the points which make this a problem. And again, as a philosopher, you're not arguing both sides of the argument. This is not communication or debating. This is just looking at the problem. and seeing it as something which we would like to solve, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's certainly not in this course anyway. Right, and I don't think in any other course, I should add. Okay, so that's our discussion on this particular module. And again, libertarianism is a very, very important and interesting philosophical discourse in social and political philosophy. Now, as I've sent you a message on the announcement board, and also as I mentioned last time, we're changing our journal procedure. It was noticed that not many of you are watching these videos, which are supposed to be helpful. So I'm now putting the the reply to your journal in this video recording. So I'm not going to write it down. I'm going to say here, after you've written your first journal entry, that you're going to go to the video and find the instructions to write your next entry, which is the reply to my reply, which is directly after you've made your initial entry. So make your initial entry, go to the video, and then make your second entry in the journal, please. Okay, so do it that way, please. Now for this week, I'm just going to read it to you. I won't elaborate, I'll just read it, and that'll be it. Right, so this is what you're going to do as a second entry. So, SouthPark takes the libertarian view. Choose 2 scenes that depict this view. Be careful to emphasize the Brechtian and Socratic methods. You've done this bit, but you can discuss it again. So, once more. SouthPark takes the libertarian view. Choose 2 scenes that depict this view. Be careful to emphasize the Brechtian and Socratic methods. You've done this a bit, but you can discuss it again. Okay, so that's the entry you're going to make after you've made your initial entry, after reading my comments on that initial entry. Please do not use this as your first initial entry. Okay, and the point of this is to get people to watch this video, because these videos have been designed to give you more insight into the modules. Not perfectly made, but as I said before, I don't have the cameras and everything to make these. I have to use the mobile phone for this. Okay, with that said, we have been talking for over 13 minutes. Well, I have, and it's time to stop. So let me know if you need anything, need any information about anything whatsoever. Please let me know. Okay, so speak to you soon. Bye-bye.